In the vast expanse of the universe, amidst star systems and swirling galaxies, lay the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council. This council, formed of numerous alien species, governed the delicate balance of interstellar relations. At its heart stood a massive arena, where matters of conflict and alliance were debated and displayed. On this fateful day, the arena was abuzz with anticipation. Representatives from the farthest reaches of the galaxy had gathered to witness the military showcase, a tradition where new recruits from different planets demonstrated their prowess. It was not just a display of strength, but also a strategic play to assert dominance without actual conflict. Among the mighty warriors of various shapes and sizes stood a single human soldier. Unlike his towering and muscular counterparts, this human, named Kyle, appeared rather unassuming. His lean build and plain features drew smirks and dismissive glances from the alien audience. Whispers filled the air, mocking the Earth's representative as too weak and insignificant. The humans send this child to represent them, guffawed a bulky Lorgan, his voice booming across the hall. Another voice, silky and cold, joined in from a slender Noxian in the high seats. Perhaps they've run out of warriors and sent a farmer instead. The laughter that followed was cruel and echoed through the chamber. Kyle, standing alone on the central platform, adjusted his standard issue blaster and remained silent. His face was calm, betraying no emotion, despite the ridicule being hurled at him. The Grand Marshal of the Council, a venerable figure with iridescent scales, called the assembly to order. Let us proceed with the exhibition. Each recruit will navigate the maze of trials. The fastest and the most strategic will bring honor to their species, he announced, his voice like thunder. As the trials began, one by one, the recruits showcased their abilities. Beams of energy lit up the arena, targets were hit with precision, and physical obstacles were overcome with agility and brute strength. The crowd cheered and roared with each display of expertise. Finally, it was Kyle's turn. As he stepped forward, the chatter rose once more, filled with derision. Kyle looked up at the towering maze ahead of him, a labyrinth of moving walls, laser traps, and sudden pitfalls, all designed to challenge the most adept of soldiers. Taking a deep breath, Kyle darted forward. His movements were fluid, his eyes sharp. The first obstacle was a series of laser beams crisscrossing at random intervals. Unlike his predecessors, who charged through using brute force and speed, Kyle paused, observing the pattern. Timing his movements perfectly, he slipped through the beams with such grace and minimalism that it barely seemed he moved at all. As he continued, Kyle employed a blend of subtlety and sharp strategic thinking. He rerouted some traps to activate others prematurely, using the maze's design against itself. Where muscle had failed earlier competitors, Kyle's intellect shone. Back in the stands, the initial mockery began to quiet down. The same creatures who had laughed were now leaning forward, eyes wide with a mix of surprise and respect. As Kyle approached the final segment of the maze, his biggest challenge awaited, a field of holographic enemies that adapted to the attacker's strategies. Here, Kyle's tactical acumen came to the forefront. He manipulated the holograms to cluster together, then set off a contained blast, neutralizing them in one fell swoop. He emerged from the maze, not just as the fastest, but as the only one who had completed the trial with perfect precision. The arena, filled with stunned silence a moment ago, now erupted in a reluctant but genuine applause. Kyle's performance was not just a victory for him, but a stark reminder to all: underestimating any species, especially the humans, could be a grave mistake. As he walked back to his quarters, a small smile played on his lips. The real game had just begun. After Kyle's unexpected triumph in the maze of trials, the mood among the Galactic Council's members shifted. Whispers of his strategic brilliance and the subtle efficiency of his performance spread like wildfire. The underestimation of the human soldier turned into a cautious intrigue across the alien representatives. The next day brought the strategy simulation, a virtual war game where recruits were tasked to lead an army in a complex battle scenario. It was designed to test tactical acumen under pressure, leadership qualities, and adaptability to rapidly changing situations. This was the event that truly mattered to the Council, as it reflected real-world command capabilities. As the participants prepared, Kyle stood in the simulation room, surrounded by high-tech equipment and holographic displays. His competitors were already boasting loudly about their intended strategies, confident in their superior combat experience. Meanwhile, Kyle quietly reviewed the terrain and initial troop placements, his mind racing through countless possibilities. The scenario was set on a distant, rocky planet with unpredictable weather patterns and treacherous terrain. Each recruit was given command of an army with units adapted to their species' strengths. For Kyle, this meant a smaller, more agile force, lacking the brute strength of his opponent's armies, but capable of rapid, precise strikes. As the simulation began, the room darkened, and the participants were immersed into the virtual battlefield. The air was filled with the sounds of digital warfare, blasts, commands, and the virtual clash of forces. Kyle's competitors launched aggressive attacks, each trying to overpower the others with sheer force. Their armies clashed in the center of the map, where the terrain was most treacherous, turning the battle into a chaotic melee. This was where Kyle diverged. He had his forces hold back, positioning them behind a series of rocky outcrops. As the alien armies entangled themselves in conflict, Kyle's troops used the high ground and the poor visibility to their advantage. They launched precise, targeted strikes, disrupting supply lines and isolating key units of the enemy forces. The holographic displays showed Kyle's strategy unfolding. His forces remained largely unengaged in direct combat, yet his influence on the battlefield was unmistakable. Every move was calculated to conserve strength and exploit the enemy's overextensions. In the control room, the council members watched with growing respect. Even the haughty Noxian delegate, who had mocked Kyle the most, couldn't help but nod in appreciation of the human's cunning. As the simulation neared its end, a massive storm swept across the virtual battlefield, a random environmental challenge program to test the recruits' adaptability. Visibility dropped, and communication lines faltered. Kyle's foresight shone through once again. Anticipating such disruptions, he had equipped his units with advanced, self-sustaining communication gear, a standard issue for humans accustomed to battling on tumultuous Earth-like planets. With his forces still in coherent order amidst the chaos, Kyle pressed his advantage. He maneuvered his troops to encircle the now scattered and disorganized alien forces, squeezing them against the storm-ravaged zones. One by one, the virtual enemy commanders conceded defeat, their forces too crippled to continue. As the simulation ended, the lights came back on, and Kyle removed his virtual interface helmet, his expression serene yet confident. The room erupted into a mix of applause and stunned silence. The outcome was clear. Kyle had not only won, but dominated the simulation with a strategy that spoke of deep understanding and impeccable foresight. Walking back to the assembly area, Kyle felt the eyes of every species on him, some with newfound respect, others with a wary caution. He had proven that human ingenuity was not to be underestimated, and he had turned the Galactic Council's laughter into a thoughtful contemplation of what humans could offer to the universe. Little did they know, Kyle had more surprises up his sleeve. The games were far from over, and he was just getting started. Kyle's consecutive victories in the trials had stirred a mix of respect and unease among the Galactic Council. His success was no longer seen as a fluke, but a demonstration of human potential that many had overlooked. As the events unfolded, his quiet demeanor and strategic genius continued to capture the attention of all present. The third challenge, known as the Galactic Negotiations, was vastly different from the previous physical and strategic tests. This challenge required diplomatic skill and the ability to forge alliances under tense circumstances. The scenario set was a dispute over a critical space route claimed by multiple alien species, and each participant was to negotiate their claim or broker peace. As the delegates gathered in the simulation chamber, transformed into a grand diplomatic hall with a round table at the center, Kyle entered with a calm stride. Around the table, holograms of various alien leaders flickered to life, each programmed to defend their interests fiercely. Kyle took his seat, his expression unreadable. He listened intently as one after another, the virtual leaders laid out their claims, their voices ranging from haughty pride to sly persuasion. The room was thick with simulated tension, each participant eager to demonstrate their diplomatic prowess. When it was his turn, Kyle began speaking in a clear, firm tone. He acknowledged each leader's claims and concerns, weaving his words carefully to avoid dismissing any party outright. Unlike his counterparts, who relied on threats or grandiose promises, Kyle's approach was markedly different. He proposed a shared usage treaty, suggesting that the space route be declared a neutral zone with regulated access times for each party. The idea was met with skepticism at first. A hulking draconian delegate, simulated to be quick-tempered and aggressive, challenged Kyle, questioning the feasibility of such a treaty. Kyle responded not with defensiveness, but with strategic concessions, offering the draconian delegate priority access during peak planetary alignments in exchange for security patrols to maintain peace in the zone. As the negotiations progressed, Kyle's ability to listen and adapt became apparent. He navigated through the cultural subtleties and political traps set by the virtual leaders, offering solutions that maximized mutual benefits while minimizing conflicts. His suggestions were practical, yet innovative, appealing to the common interests of the diverse group. The virtual leaders, programmed to test the limits of each participant, gradually began to concede to Kyle's proposals. His strategy of creating a balance of power and mutual dependency was working. By the end of the session, Kyle had not only managed to secure a peace agreement, but had also positioned humanity as a key mediator in interstellar disputes. As the simulation concluded and the holograms faded, the real delegates in the observation gallery murmured among themselves. The respect for Kyle had grown, and so had a certain wariness. His skills in combat, strategy, and now diplomacy marked him as a formidable player in the galaxy. Leaving the chamber with a nod of satisfaction, Kyle was met outside by his commanding officer, Captain Myra Jenkins. She had been observing from the sidelines, pride evident in her eyes. Exceptional work. Kyle, you've got them thinking twice now, not just about your strength, but about what humanity can bring to the table, she said, her voice low but enthusiastic. Kyle smiled, his gaze steady. Thank you, Captain. There's more to us than they expected. And I think they're starting to see that. As they walked back to the human delegation's quarters, Kyle's mind was already on the next challenge. He knew the hardest parts were yet to come, and he needed to stay ahead. His performance had started to shift perceptions, but the true test of his and humanity's place in the Council was still ahead. The momentum Kyle had built in the first 3 challenges had become the talk of the Galactic Council, turning the eyes of the galaxy towards the quiet human who kept surpassing expectations. Now, it was time for the 4th challenge, the engineering endeavor. This test was designed to assess the participants' ability to solve complex technical problems under time pressure, a critical skill in the ever-evolving technological landscape of interstellar societies. The venue for the challenge was a vast workshop filled with tools, materials from across the galaxy, and an array of broken machinery and devices. Each participant was given a malfunctioning spacecraft engine that simulated a different catastrophic failure. The task was to diagnose the problem, repair the engine, and optimize it for better performance, all within a tight time limit. Kyle stood before his assigned engine, a complex piece of machinery from a Zorathian light cruiser, known for its advanced but highly sensitive propulsion system. The other competitors, many of whom came from species renowned for their engineering prowess, dove straight into their tasks with confident ease. As Kyle examined the engine, his methodical approach was evident. He spent the first few minutes simply analyzing the structure and the diagnostic data provided. He traced circuits with a steady hand, his eyes narrowing as he pieced together the puzzle of the engine's failure. The malfunction was deep within the engine's core, a critical power fluctuation that had fried several key systems. Kyle's approach was systematic. He isolated the affected areas and began working on them with a precision that spoke of deep understanding. Unlike his counterparts, who were frantically replacing parts and rerouting power conduits, Kyle's strategy was to enhance the engine's existing design, making it not just functional, but more efficient. As he worked, Kyle integrated a small, innovative device of his own design, a power stabilizer built from common materials available in the workshop. This device was intended to not only fix the current problem, but also prevent future fluctuations that were common in this model. Throughout the challenge, the council members observed from above, their screens showing close-ups of each participant's work. Discussions and bets were made quietly, as many were skeptical about the humans' ability to match the technical expertise of species like the Tectorians or the Mechanids. But as the timer neared its end, Kyle was the first to finish. He stepped back from his engine and initiated the startup sequence. The engine roared to life, not just working, but running smoother and more efficiently than before. The diagnostic tools confirmed it. The engine's output had increased by 15%, a significant improvement. Silence followed the hum of the engine, then applause broke out, reluctant but genuine. Kyle's solution was not only effective, but elegant, showcasing a knack for innovation that was unexpected. Captain Jenkins, watching proudly, wasn't surprised. "That's how we do it," she whispered to a fellow human delegate, a grin spreading across her face. Kyle's performance in the engineering endeavor had solidified his reputation as a competitor not to be underestimated. His ability to blend technical skills with innovative thinking was a testament to human ingenuity, a quality that many in the galaxy found themselves reluctantly admiring. As Kyle cleaned his tools, his mind was already racing ahead to the next challenge. He knew that each success brought more expectations and more pressure. But he also knew that with each challenge, he was not just proving his own worth, but also elevating humanity's standing among the stars. The once dismissed weak soldier was now a force reshaping the galaxy's view of Earth and its people, one challenge at a time. The fifth challenge of the Galactic Council series was the combat adaptation test, a scenario that forced competitors to face unpredictable combat environments and adapt their strategies accordingly. Set in a massive, shifting arena that mimicked various planetary conditions, the challenge was designed to push the participants to their limits and beyond. As Kyle entered the arena, he found himself in what appeared to be a dense forest under a twilight sky, simulated to perfection. The environment could change in an instant, switching to desert winds or icy tundras without warning. Each participant had to not only survive, but also engage in combat with automated drone attackers and occasionally holographic enemies representing other alien warriors. Kyle's calm demeanor as he surveyed the environment was a stark contrast to the eager bravado of some of his competitors, who rushed into the foliage, weapons drawn. He adjusted the settings on his multi-purpose combat suit, designed by Earth's engineers to adapt to varying atmospheres and terrains. The first shift in the environment came swiftly. The lush forest faded, and the ground beneath Kyle's feet turned to slick ice. A chill wind howled around him, reducing visibility to nearly zero. Around him, the sounds of confusion and the occasional cry of a competitor slipping or struggling against the drone attackers filled the air. Kyle moved with careful precision, his boots adjusted for traction on a slick surface. Using the low visibility to his advantage, he set up traps using basic materials from his utility belt, creating snares that would alert him to the approach of any enemy. As a drone loomed out of the blizzard-like conditions, Kyle used a compact laser cutter to disable its sensors before it could react, turning the drone's own propulsion system against it, sending it crashing into another unseen attacker with a calculated ricochet shot. The environment shifted again, this time morphing into a rocky terrain under a scorching sun. Kyle adapted quickly, recalibrating his suit to cool his body and conserve water. His strategic mind worked tirelessly, analyzing each change and using his surroundings to his advantage. Throughout the challenge, Kyle's approach was not to overpower, but to outsmart. He avoided direct confrontations where possible, conserving his strength for unavoidable encounters. When he did engage, he used his knowledge of different species' weaknesses, targeting critical systems on drones or exploiting environmental hazards to disable holographic enemies. As the final phase of the test commenced, the arena transformed into a zero-gravity environment, simulating outer space combat. Here, Kyle's training in zero-G tactics came to the forefront. He maneuvered with grace, using minimal thrusts to position himself behind cover and employing magnetic hooks to secure himself and line up precise shots. The end of the challenge was signaled by the arena returning to its normal state. Kyle emerged unscathed, having successfully neutralized more threats than any other competitor, with minimal energy expenditure and maximum efficiency. The observers, many of whom had doubted a human could excel in such a varied and dynamic test, were left in a state of surprised respect. Kyle's performance was not just about physical prowess, but a deep understanding of combat in all its forms. As he left the arena, nods of acknowledgement came from even the most skeptical of alien delegates. Kyle had once again turned disdain into admiration, his reputation growing not just as a skilled soldier, but as a symbol of human capability. With only one challenge left, the excitement and anticipation were palpable. Kyle had gone from being the underdog to one of the favorites. But more importantly, he had begun to change how the galaxy viewed humanity. As he prepared for the final challenge, Kyle knew that the real victory was not just the title or the accolades, but the newfound respect for his species. He was ready to finish what he had started and show the Galactic Council that humans were not just participants in the galaxy, but formidable players in its future. The final challenge of the Galactic Council's competition was dubbed the Ultimate Crisis Management. This scenario required each competitor to handle a simulated catastrophic event affecting a whole planet. It was a test of leadership, crisis resolution, and the ability to coordinate across different species and technologies under extreme pressure. As Kyle prepared for the challenge, the weight of what he had accomplished so far settled on his shoulders, not just for himself, but for humanity. The arena for the final test was a complex control center filled with screens, interfaces, and communication devices. Each participant was given a different crisis scenario, and Kyle's was a severe ecological disaster on a densely populated world. The simulation began, and Kyle was immediately thrust into chaos. The planet, a vibrant hub in the simulation, was facing rapid atmospheric deterioration caused by a malfunctioning terraforming device. The stakes were high. Fail to fix the problem, and billions of lives would be lost. Kyle's calm demeanor was crucial as he took command. He quickly assessed the information, delegating tasks to simulated teams and making critical decisions. He coordinated evacuation plans, launched repair missions, and communicated with various planetary leaders to maintain order and cooperation. His strategy was multifaceted. First, stabilize the situation by deploying atmospheric scrubbers to buy time. Next, repair the terraforming device. He employed a team of specialized drones for the repair mission, a risky maneuver given the unstable conditions, but necessary for a timely resolution. As the situation on the screens slowly began to stabilize, Kyle's leadership was put to the test when a secondary crisis emerged, a series of riots breaking out in major cities, sparked by fear and misinformation. Kyle handled this with a blend of firmness and empathy. He initiated a planet-wide broadcast using simple and reassuring words, a tactic to calm the populace while deploying peacekeeping forces to the critical areas. The final hours of the simulation were intense. Kyle's screens lit up with updates, progress reports, and new challenges, but he remained focused, his eyes sharp and his decisions swift. As the simulated crisis began to subside, the atmosphere in the control center changed. What had started as a frantic battle against time had transformed into a methodical containment and recovery operation. When the simulation finally ended, the planet was saved and stability was restored. The applause that erupted in the council chamber was thunderous. Kyle's handling of the crisis had not just averted disaster in the simulation, but had showcased a level of competence and composure that was rarely seen. As the results were announced, and Kyle was declared the overall winner of the competition, a standing ovation from the council members, many of whom had initially mocked him, was his reward. His journey from the underestimated underdog to the champion was complete, and the respect he had earned for humanity was immeasurable. Later, as the council convened to formally recognize his victory, the Grand Marshal spoke. Today, we witness not just the triumph of a soldier, but the emergence of a leader. Kyle has shown us that courage, intelligence, and a calm hand in crisis are qualities that transcend species and stereotypes. Kyle, standing before the council, felt a surge of pride, not for his personal achievement, but for what it represented. Humanity was no longer the laughing stock of the council, but a respected member of the galactic community. As he accepted his award, Kyle's thoughts were on the future. This victory is not mine alone. It belongs to all of humanity, he declared. Let it be the beginning of a new chapter in our interstellar journey.